Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're setting out on a journey that's going to fundamentally change how you view global catastrophes. We're going to look closely at the forces shaping our world. And honestly, we're going to challenge some deeply ingrained assumptions you probably didn't even know you had.
Okay, let's dive right into this. You know, when a massive hurricane hits the coast or a devastating earthquake shakes the ground, we tend to instinctively put that event into a neat little box. But the core question we're answering today is, where exactly is the line between what nature does and what we do? Are things really as black and white as we've always been taught?
We've all grown up with this universally accepted binary, right? On one side, we've got natural disasters. These are your storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, droughts. They come from Earth's incredibly dynamic physical processes, stuff that's been happening naturally for millions of years. Then on the other side, we have man-made disasters. It feels like a really clean, logical separation, doesn't it?
Let's ground ourselves in exactly what that second category means for a second. An anthropogenic, or man-made disaster, is strictly the result of human actions, our negligence, or our systemic failures. We're talking about massive industrial accidents, catastrophic oil spills, or terrifying nuclear meltdowns. Traditionally, the distinction is crystal clear, but as modern scientific research is constantly showing us, we need to completely tear this traditional definition down.
Section 1. Blurring the boundary. A massive gray area. Because the reality is, we are operating in this massive, urgent space where the line between an Earth process and a human outcome is incredibly blurry.
The sheer, terrifying scale of this blurred boundary is staggering. Take this finding from the United Nations. Record numbers of unprecedented climate disasters in 2024 alone, displacing hundreds of thousands. That is an absolute gut punch. One of the strongest scientific findings of the past decade is that greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel use are the major catalyst making these supposed natural extreme events significantly more frequent and way more intense.
Because of this, we're now seeing what researchers actually classify as impossible heat waves. Literally impossible. Recent global analysis have linked dozens of these previously impossible weather events directly to anthropogenic warming. So even when a hazard starts out with nature, its likelihood of happening and the sheer severity of it when it does hit is being entirely shaped by human activity on a global scale.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next point, Section 2, Human Decisions, Natural Disasters. We have to look at how global climate changes translate all the way down to specific, local human choices.
Let's look closely at how we build our cities, because urbanization heavily dictates how a hazard turns into a disaster. The comparison here is pretty stark. On the left, natural river channels have the built-in capacity to disperse water. On the right, roads and infrastructure just eliminate that capacity entirely. Take the city of Shiraz in Iran, for example. Experts pointed out that transforming natural river channels into roads completely destroyed the floodplain's natural ability to manage water. Poor planning like building in these floodplains dramatically increases our vulnerability.
It gets even worse when you look at the very ground beneath our feet. Our cities are blanketed in impermeable surfaces, asphalt and concrete. These materials severely reduce the soil's ability to infiltrate water. So what would normally be a heavy but totally manageable rain absorbing into the earth instead leads to significantly faster runoff, and that rapidly turns into a deadly flash flood. We literally pave the way for the disaster.
A massive part of this infrastructural vulnerability actually comes down to an outdated engineering standard known as a stationary climate. It's this historical assumption that rainfall patterns and environmental conditions are just gonna remain unchanging and stable forever. But we know today that the climate is wildly shifting. Engineering practices that rely on a stationary climate risk creating infrastructure that's fundamentally vulnerable to extreme events that used to be rare but are now common.
And we see massive human modifications turning natural hazards into human-impacted catastrophes in our wider waterways too. Large mismanaged dams can significantly alter the natural flow of rivers. Now, attributing a specific flood entirely to a dam is pretty complex, but it's crystal clear that while a flood is technically a natural event, mismanaging massive water infrastructure can worsen floods downstream or create conditions that amplify the hazard entirely.
Let's move along and see how this builds in a different environment. The sequence of deforestation is a clear, linear cause and effect. Step 1, the trees are removed. Step 2, without those deep roots, the soil structure destabilizes, and keep in mind, warming soils from climate change just compound this instability. Step 3,
A heavy rain hits that weakened slope and triggers a deadly landslide. The rain itself, an earth process, but the deadly landslide, that was a direct result of human deforestation.
So, if our actions are so deeply intertwined with these events, why do we still view them purely as untouchable acts of nature? Well, that brings us to Section 3, the Act of God myth, reframing disasters.
The way disasters are framed in the media and in our public discourse profoundly affects how we understand responsibility. Look at this. Narratives that label disasters as mere acts of nature can obscure the role of underlying human decisions and vulnerabilities. I really want you to start questioning the headlines you read. While not every extreme event is caused by humans, our risk exposure absolutely is. How disastrous an event becomes is completely shaped by human choices in land use, in our governance, and in our overall development.
And the impact of these choices is profoundly socioeconomic. Our geographic context heavily determines our risks. Regions with high industrial activity naturally face more direct man-made hazards. Meanwhile, other regions record way higher exposure to amplified natural hazards. Research shows these disasters affect the country's production efficiency and innovation capacity in highly complex, non-linear ways. An early occurrence of a disaster might actually spur resilience and adaptation, but if it crosses a threshold, the frequency of these disasters will severely depress economic growth and stall technological catch-up entirely.
But here's the truly empowering part of this explainer. If humans build the vulnerability, it absolutely stands to reason that humans can also build the resilience. Let's pivot to Section 4, Disaster Resilience, Designing Prevention.
So, the crucial point is that unlike purely natural processes, the man-made aspects of disaster risk offer us incredibly clear, actionable opportunities for prevention. We can implement better urban planning and land use regulations. We can insist on climate-adaptive infrastructure design that finally ditches that old stationary climate myth. We can fund early warning systems, and we can heavily invest in nature-based solutions.
Globally, the shift is actually already happening. Take a look at the Sendai Framework. This is an international framework for disaster risk reduction, and it specifically stresses the need to integrate disaster resilience directly into global development planning. We are finally recognizing on a world stage that we have agency in mitigating these catastrophes. And perhaps the most beautiful strategy we have is ecosystem restoration. By utilizing nature-based approaches, like extensive reforestation and restoring natural floodplains and wetlands, we naturally reduce hazard impacts, while simultaneously enhancing the biological ecosystems around us. We basically let nature do what it does best, while we step out of its way.
Which brings us to our conclusion. Section 5, the continuum. Beyond the binary, folks. We are no longer living in a rigid binary, folks. The traditional division is challenged by overwhelming scientific evidence. We are living in a continuum. We have got to officially replace that old black and white worldview. Rather than asking whether a disaster is simply natural or man-made, the much more productive question, the one we absolutely must ask for effective policy, planning, and public awareness in this modern age, is this: how do human actions influence vulnerability, intensity, and resilience? I challenge you to apply this new paradigm every single time you see an extreme event in the news. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the world around you.